Hey guys, Dr. Ashley here. We are talking about taking back godly authority in your life. And I've been specifically going through the story of the Israelites with my own Bible study and with you guys. And I love this part of the story, right? Like, if you remember, God has promised the Israelites huge, right? Like, if you think back all the way to Abraham, God basically told them that they were going to have all of these descendants. It was going to be as numerous as the sand, and the sand, or like you can't even count it. And then they were going to have this special land, this special place that they went, that's flowing with milk and honey, meaning that it not only provides what they need, but also these additional blessings and wonderful things, wonderful treats. And God promised Abraham that hundreds of years before this. And if you remember, Abraham got to see a little bit of this in his own life. He got to see a little bit of God's provision and God's promises and God's like miracles. But the full story doesn't really play out. He gets like one son, and basically that's the end of the story. So then you flash forward, you move forward in time, and you get to the Israelites don't end up with this like magical land. They end up in slavery. They're in Egypt because of a drought, and they end up being slaves of the Egyptians. And they're numerous. There's a ton of them, but they have no power. They have no abilities. They have no land like God has promised them. They're really just kind of stuck there, and they're crying out for God to hear them, for God to show up, and for God to, do what he promised, for God to fulfill the things that he had been telling them generations before. And so we see Moses get called and God say, "Look, I have heard the people's cries, and it is time. We are moving out of here. It is time to go." But do you know what happens next? It gets so much worse, right? Like like Moses tells the people it's time to go, and then they stop getting the supplies to make the things that they need. Like their jobs just get literally harder. And the Israelites get really upset. And Moses gets really upset. And he goes back to God and he's like, hello. I thought you were going to help us get out of here. This is literally getting worse. What is going on? And so God really reiterates all of these promises to them. He's like, look, you are Abraham's seed. Everything that I promised him will be yours. You're getting freedom from slavery. I hear your cries. I hear what you're saying. I have not been ignoring you. I'm going to redeem everything that was lost. I'm going to take care of those who deserve judgment. And I'm adopting you as my own. You're going to get my best from here on out. It's so great. It's this huge promise that he gives them. And then, gosh, there's these crazy miracles, and God's like showing up and showing out, like reminding the Egyptians, like, look, I'm better than you. Hello. And so they go through all these plagues, and then they get to the Red Sea, and the Israelites are scared, but God shows up again and like parts the seas for them, gets them across safely, gets rid of their enemies entirely. And then, yay, that's the story, right? And then, like the next day, they walk into the promised land and they get to live and eat milk and honey for forever. And they live happily ever after. Amen. Right? Yeah, not so much, right? Like that's I mean, if it's a fairy tale, that's literally how we would have written it, right? Like that's how we would have expected it to go. But that's not how it goes down at all, right? Like so they go to the Red Sea and they're kind of struggling there, but then they see God kind of show up and kind of show them that they have to kind of participate and believe. And then they go to this part of the desert and there's no water, and then they have to watch God, then they complain again. But then they have to watch God show up again and provide for them. And he's providing their needs, their food, their manna, their quail, like all of these different things. We see God show up again and again to kind of just keep reiterating, look, I've got you. I've got all these needs. I see everything that you're going through. But it does kind of leave you wondering on some level, especially for us who grew up with like classic Disney tales, right? Like where's the happy ending? Like where's the like they're wandering around in the desert for the next 40 years. And that's not what God promised, right? So this particular section of the Bible, it makes it really interesting because I think it's easy to blame the Israelites. It's easy to say, like, oh, they saw all these big miracles. Why don't they just trust God and like be happy? And I think if you put yourself in their shoes, it's easy to see how hard that would have been. You knew exactly what God was promising, and that's not what you're seeing, right? Like they've been waiting for God to show up and do more than he said and more than he's actually done. And it's not that he hasn't done anything. It's just, you're waiting for redemption. You're waiting for the ending of the story. You're waiting for God to show up and finish the things. And I bet you've been in a place like that in your life at some point before, right? Like you see God move at your workplace, but maybe not in your family's life, right? Or like you see God move in your relationships, but maybe not in this other relationship, right? Like you see God move when it comes to this part of your finances, but you're still struggling over here, right? Like you know what this tension is like where you've seen God move and you've seen him show up and you've seen him answer your prayers, but you're also still waiting and still hoping. And that hard place can make it really hard to keep trusting God for more. I love this passage in Psalms. I feel like this is where the Israelites were, even though they'd just come out of these huge miracles. Remember, they've spent 400 plus years waiting for God to show up, really like wondering if God was still there, if God could still hear them, right? Like it's not like they've got the picture like we do of this like loving, beautiful God who's with us. Like, really, as far as they're concerned, he's some like old angry God up in heaven ignoring them. Like, and then he shows up and what? He's like angry, and there's these huge, crazy plagues. All these things are being destroyed. All these people are dying. And like, he's what? The God of the cicadas and death? Like, what is that? Like, are they supposed to be comforted by that? Are they supposed to like get up and follow him joyously to nothingness, the desert, really? And so I feel like Psalms 13 really kind of shows what they're probably feeling like. It says, "O Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? How long must I struggle with anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, O Lord my God, restore the sparkle to my eyes, or I will die. Don't let my enemies gloat, saying, 'We have defeated him.' Don't let them rejoice at my downfall." And I just feel like this is what the Israelites, where they were, this is what their hearts are kind of saying. How long, Lord? Like, will you forget us forever? Right? Because they had 400 plus years of slavery. And what they've had is an answer from God. They've had an answer to say, "No, I still see you. I still care about you. I'm here for you." And then at the Red Sea, they said, "How long, Lord? Like, what are we going to do now?" And he says, "No, no, I'm bigger than your fears. I'm bigger than the biggest of obstacles you see. I'm stronger than that," right? And then they get to the desert and there's no water, there's nothing to eat, there's nothing to drink. And the Israelites go, "How long, Lord, do you even see us? Do you care about us?" And he goes, "No, no, I see your needs. I know exactly what you need. And I've got a way to provide for them, both the needs you ask for and the ones you don't. I've got you." And what he keeps answering again and again is just showing them little small parts of who he is and how he's going to take care of them. They were waiting for so long. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? They're promised big, but God doesn't deliver big, at least not right away. And this is the hardest place to be, to believe that God's going to show up in these other 50 parts of your life, that you're still waiting to see him move, still waiting to see him grow, still waiting to see him amaze you. Have you ever felt like that? I know it's hard to think that God's going to continue to care. It's easy to say, I trusted you, God. I dreamed big. I stepped forward in faith, and you're just not showing up. But I think the truth is, Exodus 17:7, the Israelites literally say, is the Lord among us or not? And I think the biggest thing that they kind of have, the biggest point that they have to come to in this place, one of the main reasons they wander around in the desert for so long is they have to decide if God is on their side or not. Again, it's been hundreds of years that they think he's on somebody else's side. They think he's forgotten about them. And they've got to remember, even through just these small little troubles, just through the water, through the daily heat, right? Through the daily exhaustion, they've got to remember again and again that he provides, that he cares, that he loves, that he is not going to leave them. And it's so hard to stay in that place and believe, but you can't stop at the frustration part. See, God is not afraid of your frustration. He's not afraid of your anger and your fear. If you need to get down on your knees and scream at him, not even remotely worried about it. That's why I love the Psalms. They're so honest. And God does not turn away from us when we're honest like this. But the thing about Psalms 13 is it doesn't end there. Verses 5 and 6, after he lays down his frustration, he lays down his fears, he lays down his honesty about the situation. He goes, but I trust in your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you've rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he is good to me. So, how do we get there? How do we get from the pain and the frustration and the insecurity to the belief? How do we get from verse 4 to verse 5? How do we get from the Red Sea to the promised land, right? What do we do? So, really specific things. Step one is to just come back to God. Do not be afraid to be honest with God about where you are, what you're thinking. Um, really concentrate on who He is and what you know He's like. What is His character? Not just in this particular circumstance, but how have you seen him in your life before? How has he showed up and answered your prayers? How has he surprised you and blessed you in amazing ways? Really remember the things that he's done for you before and concentrate on that aspect of who he is. Two, I love to worship music, right? Reset the atmosphere is a great way to kind of help reset your own ability to kind of think things through. It's easy to get lost in the circumstances and have them kind of cloud everything you can see. But worship music kind of resets our focus on God and gets it off the badness in front of us. Um, you can go back to, again, like verses and things that God has promised you over the years. And then the main thing is to just really wrestle with this statement. Is the Lord with me or not? I think that is the biggest place to wrestle. If you can get that settled, God really can take you through anything in your life. And this is the part that's the hardest to get to. But either you see God as your foe or you see God as on your side. And just because he hasn't shown up in the way and in the timing and in the way he's promised yet, that doesn't mean that he doesn't love you. He still cares, he still hears, and he still believes in you. So don't forget that. He is on your side. So hang in there. You can do this. See you later.